It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here's WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is our 137th Mayor of Annapolis, Gavin Buckley, and welcome to the 1430 Connection, Mayor.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You're coming up on 2 months in office. What's been the biggest surprise so far?
I think you get scheduled a lot. So I'm going from hourly meetings. I have meetings on the hour, sort of all day long. I'm hoping that, after the first quarter that settles down a little bit so that we can start to implement some ideas. That's the big thing for me. I want to be a mayor that actually gets some things done.
And what's your take of some of the first city council meetings that you've been in? Is it a perfect procedure? Does it work without error?
It's a democratic process. I think, I like it that people can come in and state their opinions. I think that we don't fact check them all the time, so that's just their opinions, So I'm enjoying the debate on the market house now, which is an interesting position we're in. But, a big campaign promise for me was that I would fix the market house.
And this has gone on for several administrations. It's been the bane of many administrations. And you have stepped aside because there were some conflicting interests.
Yeah.
What is your feeling about moving forward with this? Do you have this vision that we're going to see? What's the name of the market in D.C.?
So there's Eastern Market.
Yeah, Eastern Market. Yeah. Is that what you'd like to see? Union Market. Yeah.
Look, I think that we can point to all those great markets around the country and say, why can't we do that? We put out a national RFP. We advertised in Washington, D.C. We advertised in Baltimore. What we got is who showed up. Mm-hmm. So we should be thanking the people that showed up and are going to take a risk on the market house. And then we should be trying to help them get open, because I need that market open by May 1. I'll be rolling my sleeves up and making sure that happens.
So May 1 is the date?
That's for me, yeah. I mean, that's the start of the season, really, and we should have a beautiful market that everybody feels welcome in, and that is the showpiece of the city, and I'm going to deliver that.
If it isn't open on May 1, will you walk the plank?
I think that's what happens at Josh.
It is what happened. So I'm just going to put it out there. You ready to up that ante?
It won't, because I haven't been in there, so I know about the walk of the plank part.
Okay, you don't want to commit to walking the plank just yet. Maybe we'll ask again further down the road, but not on the last day of April. We're going to catch you again. You were at the United States Conference of Mayors last week in Washington.
Yes.
What kind of tips did you get from other mayors?
Look, it was exciting. I felt like the small-time mayor. I mean, we're talking about mayors who have, multi-billion-dollar budgets, as opposed to a $100 million budget. So, but there were inspirational mayors there, and I was there for a really inspirational moment where Mitch Landry, the New Orleans mayor, stood up and said, that 7 cities are under attack from the federal government for their position on immigration, and I just liked the fact that he just stood up and said, look, you attack one mayor, you attack us all.
And these are sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
They weren't going to the talk that the president was doing.
Yeah, I think
boycotting it.
Yeah, I think the sanctuary city is a complicated issue. I mean, look, everybody wants to get the bad guys. Nobody wants to. But we also want to feel like these communities can actually have faith in the police system and that they can come forward and help us. And we also want to think that when kids go to school, kids that are born here, that that they know that they're not going to lose a parent when they come home. And so my kids go to public school. We have Spanish friends that feel some of these fears. There's a lot of complexity to it, and just naming it, branding it a sanctuary city doesn't really do it justice, I think.
One of the things mentioned at the Conference of Mayors last week, Mars Pet Care unveiled the playbook for pet-friendly cities. Were you there? Did you know about this?
I saw some of the pet stuff, and we've got our own debates on pets. I've got a couple of puppies myself, and so look, I like dog parks and the way they build community. I think the challenge is always, where do you locate them? That's one of the big issues for the city,
So that prior to him leaving office and towards the end of the election, Mayor Panelides announced a series of community pocket dog parks, some or all of which would be done by public-private partnerships. The first was announced at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium with the Naval Academy Athletic Association and Chet Gladchuk allowing the city to use the space, and he would take full responsibility for building it out. And in recent history, Eastport residents were stopped from using a space they had historically been using for their dogs because it wasn't, quote, a dog park.
Yeah.
So where are we at with the dog park thing?
I think that on the Eastport situation, there's a couple of immediate neighbours that don't want that there, so we have to be respectful of the neighbours that live around it, and we have to follow the law. So we those parks, that park is a county park, and the law is that you not supposed to have pets in a children's playground area. So look, I'm mindful that people want a place to let their dogs run free, so we have to work and find a location that works for everybody. I think that's been the pushback. I get a sense that not everybody is all in for the dog park at Admiral Heights, and so if some neighbours are coming out against it, we have to think about them as well. And I don't think, I've got a sense that the Naval Academy, and that was a really generous offer, and Chuck Gladchuk was great that they would do all that sort of stuff, but I think that they're only going to do it if they get 100% support for it. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, more with the mayor of Annapolis. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio today with Mayor Gavin Buckley. National Sailing Hall of Fame. Seems like that ship might have sailed, and you've discussed the idea of a hotel with underground parking, and this would be in an area that often experiences tidal or nuisance flooding, in addition to regular storm floods, and this will continue to get worse. Can you address that?
Yes, so I feel like I was in office 2 or 3 weeks and I had a solution for the Sailing Hall of Fame. Look, I think we can't keep calling ourselves the sailing capital without putting our money where our mouth is. So we have to embrace one of the big things that identifies us. So we came up with a solution. We found a private-public partner that would be able to build the structure for the Sailing Hall of Fame, and then they could have used their resources and their money to fit it out. So, and at the same time, we would, I believe, re-energize City Dock by putting in a hotel called the Maritime. We would have been able to use private money to put the parking underground and create a piazza or a great public space, which I envision with a fountain and a little spray park that comes out of the ground, things for families to do when they get down to City Dock. So a pedestrian-friendly area. You'd still be able to park the boat show on top of it. You'd still be able to drive a bus on it when we need to put a bus on there, but generally it would be more of a pedestrian-friendly area. When we build the garage underground, and that garage can be defined by the community, if it's 300 cars or 150 cars or 450, whatever, that's what the community's there to decide. We would want community input. But when we build the last level of that garage, we could build it 3 foot higher than sea level, and we could start to create our seawall for future for the future.
Are you thinking of Charleston, just out of curiosity, when you're thinking about this? Because you said the fountain, the parking garage, and it leads me right to Charleston.
Charleston is an inspirational city for me. I use it in talking points all the time. Their hotel at their dock was a big part of the turnaround at Charleston.
Right.
And we could definitely take a page out of their book. And Joe Riley, the mayor of Charleston, is definitely one of the people that I look up to, one of the kind of inspirational mayors in the country, considered the most popular politician in America for 3 decades, and you don't hear those 2 words that often these days, popular and politician. So I'm hoping to follow in a little bit in his footsteps.
Manhattan has a maritime hotel, right? They have one.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. We're definitely not using that design, but that's. I just like the name Lafayette Square, and we like the name Maritime Hotel because we're in a maritime zone. So yeah.
All right. And how are you upset about the recent developments with this National Sailing Hall of Fame?
I don't want to lose them to Newport. I want them to define us. We have all these talented people that have made Annapolis home. We're going to lose some of those guys. They're going to leave us. I think that we need things to do at City Dock. So we need to create rituals down there, and I think they had some great programming there. There was definitely kids who were getting to sail boats for the first time in their lives. They were going into some of the more marginalized communities and getting kids on boats for the first time in their lives. It would be a great facility, something to do when you get to City Dock. So I supported on that, but it sounds like they have a pretty enticing offer in Newport, and Newport went after them pretty aggressively. But I think I might have got to the party a little bit too late. But I'm still going to fight for it, you know.
All right. Regarding the City Dock Master Plan and that seawall supposedly going in at some point with help from the Naval Academy doing this, we've only done one part of flood mitigation thus far, yes?
Yep.
Where are we at with the rest of it?
So right now we're asking for the state, for the governor to give us $5 million over the space of 2 years for a $10 million flood mitigation plan. That flood mitigation plan realigns all the storm drains. So that nuisance flooding that you see happening, it used to happen 4 times a year, and now it happens close to 40 times a year. So, and sometimes, and last year on one of the boat show days was pretty critical. It looked like, you know, we might lose part of that day. I want to fast track this. The plan is a 2-year plan. It lines all the storm drains to 2 pump houses. Those pump houses pump the water out faster than it comes in at those nuisance flooding times. And so we're on track to get that started. And there's an exciting part that we've added to it now. When we tear up the streets to realign the storm drains, Market Square, in between the Market House and Federal House and McGarvey's, when we tear that up, we're going to put brick down on that and brick it like we bricked the first block of West Street and create a little town square there. And I think that we should do lights or flags above that little area there, and that's where we'll run farmers markets out of. When we re-brick it, we'll have a chance to address the trash areas at Middleton's and at the Iron Rooster and at the Market House, and make sure that none of that runoff or those cigarette butts from the bars get into the bay, and we'll mitigate that pollution.
That's great news. All right, we're going to take another short break. When we come back, more with Mayor Buckley. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio with the 137th Mayor of Annapolis, Gavin Buckley. We are talking about all things Annapolis, including bricks on the streets. Yeah, when some of the crosswalks have gotten torn up, they've been replaced with not brick.
On Main Street, I think we did a patch there with a tarmac patch just to sort of buy us some time. So we were going to start the bricking of Main Street, and I asked the city if they would delay that this year. And I spoke to merchants on the street, and they were kind of happy not to have the interruption this year. So if we get everything right and line things up properly, we will start that re-bricking on the 2nd of January next year, and that means that the exposure to the peak period of the city will be lessened by being coordinated in time. And there's another scope to it where we want to try to expand the sidewalk when we do it. So I've got a few things that I want to try out to see if it can help re-energize the Main Street of Annapolis.
To allow for more dining on the sidewalk?
Yeah, so what I want to do is expand the sidewalk on the right-hand side of Main Street when you stand at the top of it. So if we do that expansion, a 3-foot expansion of the sidewalk, we'll create cafes at Treaty of Paris, Cafe Normandy, Joss, Oysteria, Acme, Chicken Roost, and all those cafes, outdoor cafes, would actually have water views. And I think that will leave more people on the street. It will create a kind of European cafe culture, and I think that will help all the businesses around it. So one of the issues, we have to take a lane of parking out in the upper section of Main Street, and then a small section in the lowest part of Main Street. But before we do that, we'll substitute the parking at Green Street. We'll cut a parking deal around the courthouse, and we'll do something around the State House to sort of substitute some of those parking spaces. What I'm trying to do is create a trolley lane and a bike lane.
Okay.
And a soft wheel trolley lane.
Okay.
And that bike lane will get you into the historic district safely and out of the historic district safely. And then around the city, I hope to have city bike shares. And that trolley lane will have 2 types of trolleys on it. We'll have one called the East-West Flyer and one called the Crosstown Flyer. The Crosstown Flyer trolley will be a free open-air trolley in the summer that takes you from Gate 3 of the Academy to Maryland Ave to St. John's to the Visitors Center, and then up and down this trolley lane on Main Street. Yeah.
All right. Ton of topics I still want to get to. We might run out of time, but since we're talking about downtown right now, you do remember a time where there wasn't this additional crosswalk that goes from the Market House over to City Dock that on summer days turns into a huge issue for drivers and pedestrians.
Yep, I have a plan. So the plan is based on a Frederick model. In Frederick, they brought back some of the old style traffic lights, the ones that come out of the ground that don't hang over the street. So on the four corners, those four corners there, we're going to put a stop light, a crossing light, and a walking signal. So you'll press a button, the whole box will be a crosswalk at the times when you'll be able to cross. So I believe that is going to solve the problem. So it will be a crosswalk, a timed crosswalk with a press button on it.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right, we're still down in this area, and here's a question you won't get from anybody else. Feeding ducks, white bread is horrible for the ducks. It's horrible for the environment. I've asked two other, but not in this studio, asked two other administrations to address it. Why do we keep teaching our kids to do this? Why are we allowing this to happen? We could put duck food vending machines in, as other cities have done.
That's news to me. I think that's interesting. If it's an environmental thing that is a negative thing, I definitely think let's start the education. That's a great idea.
Negative for the ducks, negative for the environment, bad for the bay, bad
Yeah.
for the creek. Okay, moving on from that. Parking you just mentioned might lose some spaces on Main Street. You also just mentioned Frederick. Frederick is one of the places I've been to, as Easton is also, that gives you free certain amount of time limited parking, which benefits the businesses. Here, it's pay right away, get a ticket the second you are over. In addition to that, we have State Circle during legislative session.
I think that we need to include some of the garages that are not in the current parking plan in the plan. So there's a free garage right by the state garage is free 7 nights a week and all weekend long. And we need a sign on Road Boulevard that states how many vacant spaces there are at which different garages in the city. And I would look at ideas like that. I think Frederick's a good model. There's a lot of things we can learn from Frederick. Yeah.
Do you foresee any chance of free parking given like for an hour or even 2 hours on Main Street or down at City Dock?
I mean, we have the businesses that can buy into the 2-hour program. I'm still sort of looking in that. We are, that's one of the things that we're focusing on right now. So on our transition teams, we're coming up with a set of initiatives on that. So we haven't got the full-on results, but all that stuff's on the table.
All right. The mayor takes a lot of heat for issues plaguing the housing authority for the city of Annapolis. It's two separate entities. How are you dealing with that issue?
Well, I want to make it my issue because, we have a tale of two cities in Annapolis, and we can't be a great community until we make a great community for everyone. And we can look at public housing situations in the city that were turned around with the right kind of investment. So, but the first step is you have to win people's trust, and people that live in some of these communities feel like they're trying to be phased out and that the plan is to get rid of public housing. We only have 750 public housing units. I know people say we have 1 million. We have Section 8, of course, but as far as public housing, as far as HACA, 750 units is something you can fix. You can drill down on that and you can make it better. And so I think that we have won people's trust with the current head of HACA, Beverly Wilborn. I'm going to try to keep her here for 4 years to help me advance the cause. And then I think that we're going to deliver a product that people are proud of, and people feel a sense of community out of.
Right.
What happens is that I think that some of these areas we haven't invested in, people that live there, and they haven't been invested in for 50 years or so, people that live there think no one cares about them, and so why would they care? And these environments become petri dishes for problems. Mm-hmm. So, I think that people that are on both sides of the argument all want the same thing. They want it
better
to
communities.
Be improved. Yeah. And so I'm going to roll my sleeves up and be very involved in that. So, yeah.
I think we're out of time. I think we covered ducks, dogs, your first couple months in office, and some of the issues plaguing Annapolis, as well as other areas throughout the country. I thank you very much for your time, Mayor.
Great. Well, I love being on your show. Thank you so much for that.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.